Welcome to Marketing MASH, brought to you by themarketingscope.com.
Hi, I'm Eric Vidal. Today we want to talk about measuring marketing's impact. So as marketing leaders, we're always asked to come up with goals and measure the impact and have certain KPIs in place to measure that. So over the years, I've done it quite a few different ways, and I've talked to some of my peers and coworkers on this, and I wrote a recent article, so I want to share some of that insight with you. In the past, I used to get measured when it came to lead gen on how many leads or how many qualified leads. And sometimes we even, we went further, this is going back 10 years ago or plus, how many opportunities were created or how much pipeline was created, even going as far as how much revenue was generated from those leads. And I have mixed feelings about talking about revenue generator or being measured that way because first, I think it's very important that marketing and sales are together and their goals are very similar and they work together to develop those goals and to deliver on revenue goals. I think it's very important. The only challenge is, in some cases, for a marketer, you're coming into a new organization or there's been some change or turnover and maybe some salespeople have left or they're just trying to grow their sales organization or they've been having challenges. Well, you could build a hell of a pipeline and some great opportunities and they may not close on average or they may be going through some challenges. So just one thing to think about. From a thought leadership or brand perspective, a lot of the ways we would measure our success or the impact was maybe how many pieces of content we created, but how many of those got published. What was the exposure that we received, like per month or per quarter, from an editorial perspective or from a traffic perspective to that blog or to the site. Then there's some more sophisticated ways like measuring and monitoring share of voice or how well the brand did in certain research surveys every quarter. And that's hard to do by the way, it's very expensive, but maybe every year. When I was at WebEx 10 years ago, we used to measure it every year. And even that was, a bit cumbersome. That took time and some money, but it was important for the organization. So in the article, I wanted to make sure I reference this. We sourced TrackMaven's 2017 Marketing Leadership Survey, and there's some interesting findings. One of the things I think is very interesting is about 57% of the audience says it's easier today to measure marketing's impact. And another 9.5% said it's much easier. So I think we've come a long way in the last 5 or 10 years, especially the last 10 years, which is positive. I think it's a little unsettling though still that where you have people that 22% say, there's still a challenge and 11% say it's harder. And that's a little interesting, at least from my perspective. Some of the key KPIs used in the survey that marketers said they use are the top four that I saw was engagement metrics. So 90% measured it by engagement, another 81% on consumption, and 77.5% on audience growth, and only 51.5% have a KPI used to measure marketing's impact via leads and sales metrics. That was a little interesting for me. Only 51%. So I think there's a lot of room for growth there. I mean, I think over the next few years, you're going to see that number increase. I know a lot of the companies that I work with, a lot of the marketing peers and leaders that I know and work with, that number is much higher. Almost all of them get measured by how many leads and how much pipeline and how much revenue they create. And that's a major KPI. Some tips that I'll give is, leveraging predictive analytics and leveraging analytics in general to help you with your KPIs and helping to measure marketing success, I think is key now, and it's going to be even more key in the future. So I think that's something to leverage into your mix. The other one is follow the money, and I just said this, right? measure lead quality, pipeline, and revenue if you can, at least as close to it as you can. The other thing is measuring revenue from a customer marketing perspective. One of the things that I hear all too often from some of my brothers and sisters out there in the marketing world is they're not measuring, or they're not even doing that many programs to go deeper and wider inside current accounts. I know everyone knows that stat. It varies from 7 times. It's 7 times easier or even 10 times easier to grow a current customer than it is to go get a net new one. So I would focus on that as well, customer revenue, customer growth. And I think the last thing I would focus on is, leverage as many tools as possible. I know everyone doesn't have a large budget, but leverage, use marketing automation, use some of these other tools that are out there, like I said, with predictive analytics to help you measure that success. So interested to hear some feedback from you all on what's working and what's not when it comes to measuring marketing's impact. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Marketing MASH. You can share your thoughts by following us on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe to our podcast to keep up with the show. And of course, you can always find us by visiting themarketingscope.com.